Hello and welcome back around the bonfire. It's a pleasure to have you in on what has been a somewhat beautiful, somewhat rainy Chicago Sunday as we are ready to unpack all things Chicago Fire football. And folks, I think we have a little bit of a treat. It's been a little bit of a leave of absence for one of our hosts today, but Alan is back in the fold. Alan, it's wonderful to have you back. How are you feeling?
Um, I've been busy to say the least, with a bunch of just running back and forth around the city, going from one gig to another, and also running between different liquor stores looking for the re-released Bush Light Apple. And I do have my hands on the Babble.
Now, Alan,
There we go.
no free ads. No free ads. We talk about this every week. Come on. And you can't even
Mm,
open the can. All right, that's a
Crispy.
W. And of course, as always, we are joined as well by the guy who knows the things that no one on earth would dare need to know, and that's DJ. How are you feeling, DJ?
I'm good. I just figured Alan was gone because he was campaigning to be Pope.
Oh, yeah. I could see Alan as Pope.
Yeah, I went to
Alan,
the Vatican and they were like, "We don't need another poll." They were
yeah,
like, "We just had."
technically, well, that was two popes ago. It's been plenty of time between the last Polish Pope and the next Polish Pope. So keep an eye on that. Alan to be announced as Pope in the coming days. We will once again have a Chicago Fire soccer ball sitting somewhere in the Vatican, being being held or
I'll
blessed
place
by the Pope.
like a Chicago Fire soccer ball on the altar of St. Peter.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, man, shout out Pope Francis, R.I.P. a real one. And you know what? R.I.P. The hope to win at home this week. Fire fell. Well, they didn't fall, but it absolutely felt a little bit like a fall. It was a 0-0 draw against Orlando City last night as Jeff Gall came in the 35th minute after a Chris Brady red card and performed admirably to keep the clean sheet, along with another MLS, not an MLS debut, but an MLS first start for the youngster Christopher Cups. So maybe a surprising pairing in terms of that defensive back line contributing to what was a goalless day for Luis Muriel and company. But nonetheless, the Fire unable to convert on what was seemingly a bevy of chances early, middle, and late in that game as they kind of kept the foot on the throat for a majority of it, leading to obviously 1 point at home, and the Fire still winless as we enter the second week of May. So not a great start to the season there. Couple quick stats here. For a game with no goals, it was not short of chances. Fire had 2.62 xG. Orlando had 2.03. In a game with a lot of fouls and a lot of cards, Fire with 3 yellow cards, that 1 red card to Chris Brady. It was a direct red for, I believe, a reckless foul play outside the box. So it was taken from a penalty down to a free kick. And 16 fouls called, 8 fouls on Orlando, 1 yellow card to Orlando as well. As mentioned before, Christopher Cups did get the start at center back alongside Jack Elliott. That makes the 6th homegrown or academy player in the lineup. So that is Andrew Gutman, Christopher Cups, Sergio Orahel, Mauricio Pineda, Brian Gutierrez, and Chris Brady, which is the most in Fire history. We also saw the return of Jonathan Dean to that right back position, and Kellen Acosta did miss out this week after being listed as questionable. So, fellas, the big story of the day, obviously Chris Brady being sent out. We've had some time to look at the replay. We talked about it a little bit before we got on. Alan, give me your quick 2 cents on how you're feeling about it.
Well, first of all, when it happened, I unfortunately had my back turned playing, the saxophone at the game. And all of a sudden I just hear a whistle. I see someone laying on the floor and I see the ref pulling out a red. And I was like, oh my days, like he must have murdered him. And then when they showed the slow motion replay, I was like, does that really warrant a red card? Like, okay, it was definitely reckless. It was definitely a mistake from Chris Brady, but I feel like it wasn't to a point where it should have been a straight red, in my opinion. So just truly unfortunate that they put themselves in this situation, especially Chris Brady being probably one of the more like shining spots of this lineup. Doesn't really give it too much hope.
Yeah, I think that was my, I think, initial reaction watching it back the first couple times. Both live in the stadium, and then the more I watched it, the more the thought kind of came to mind is like, look, man, this ref had already had a quick trigger. That was not the first whistle of the game. That wasn't even the first card of the game. Sergio Orahel received a yellow card in the 27th minute, right? Like, it was very clear he was short on patience, and you're coming all the way out of the box, knees to chest, flying into Duncan McGuire, who, all the credit in the world to Duncan McGuire, sold the hell out of it. Perfectly fine, but he acted like he wasn't, to make sure he got that call, which, thankfully ended up being a direct free kick as opposed to a penalty. And so ultimately, it's just kind of an example of, we talk a lot about, the positives of Chris Brady, and we all think he's a wonderful player with a bright future, but there is also a large aspect of this that is a certain level of, I don't want to say immaturity, but inexperience, right? I don't think, um,
Greg put
I
it.
don't think Chris, go ahead.
Greg said he's a young player. That's the
Yeah.
best way to put
I
it.
don't
He's
think,
still a young.
I don't think he makes that play 5 years from now, maybe not even 2 years from now. Right.
Yeah.
Just kind of a reckless play in terms of putting yourself in a bad position and then ultimately putting your team in a very bad position. But that does bring us to the man who replaced him. And I do want to give quick shout out to Jeff Gall, which surprisingly for a guy who's been around the team so long, his MLS debut and, played well enough to keep the clean sheet. I don't think he blew anybody's socks off, but he got the job done. So credit to Jeff as well.
I think the saves he made were pretty standard goalkeeper saves, and yeah, the defense did pull up to make it a clean sheet. So, but you know, of course, you
He did
can't
have that.
take it away from him. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. He did have that one really nice diving, like up to the top corner
Oh yeah.
stop, which was super impressive. But yeah, maybe the bigger part of that question, and we will get to it, is certainly the way the defense played. But we're going to start a little bit more on the attacking side of the ball with, as I mentioned before, was an offense that was given opportunity after opportunity, but seemingly just could not find anything um, other than Pedro Galese's chest. It seems he had
Literally,
9 saves on the day, and I don't know that a single one of them was earned. If we're being honest,
literally every single shot was like at his chest or right at his hands. Like it was like, come on.
we saw multiple big chances missed. I believe the number was 6 total, 5 from Hugo Kuipers alone. This has been kind of a consistent problem. And on the one hand, I think it was exciting seeing the team striking early. I think you saw a bit of the front foot forward. The team was applying pressure, playing really aggressive early and getting those opportunities, but seemingly just unable to convert. Guys, I don't know if there's a moment or a thought that stands out to you in terms of what went wrong, what has continued to go wrong, and where the squad needs to improve.
Just put the ball in the back of the net. Like I feel like this 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 is a problem that's been going on for a while. And now when you have great players like Zinkernagel, who literally was balling, like there was a moment where he just balled past like 2, 3 Orlando players, and I was like, oh my days. And then you get to the final third, and the ball's either just kicked out under their feet, or it makes a deflection, or it goes straight into Gillespie's chest and hands, or it goes blazing over. Like they couldn't catch a break for some reason. Like I don't know why. It, I kept making. I don't want to say that I kept making excuses the last few seasons, like, oh, these front players like Kuipers, they all need support. They need that help in order to put the ball in the back of the net. And it feels like we have that, like, especially in the attack, a bit more in midfield as some of these players are coming back from injury. But there's still something missing. There's still something missing of them just being able to, in the position where they're standing, where the ball is at their foot, put it to the back of the net. Like for that last game, it was a little bit frustrating. Like from the beginning to the very end of the game, even way past the red card, there were hella moments that the ball could have gone into the back of the net, but it just didn't. And that was just the most frustrating thing, honestly, that it just couldn't get into the back of the net by divine intervention or something.
Yeah, and it almost does kind of make you wonder. We'll talk a little bit, I think, about midweek game this week, Open Cup against Detroit City. Um, it does make you wonder if, man, do you just play those guys 20 minutes? It does feel like at a certain point you just need to see the ball hit the back of the net. We've talked a lot about Jonathan Bamba not necessarily living up to expectations. Philip Zinkernagel, man, for a guy who for a guy who people kept telling me was supposed to be a bench option, looks like the most dynamic player on the team, right? I mean, outside of maybe Hugo Kuipers, right? He looks better than Brian Gutierrez and Jonathan Bamba now. I don't see how you could feel any other way about it, right? The guy is seemingly the one true creative player on the team, the guy who you say, take the ball at your feet and go get us a goal, go put the ball in the back of the net. And unfortunately, unable to convert, but it does feel, man, like there's so much of this that just felt mental and, passes being off by just a couple inches. And now instead of playing, right to the top of the foot, it's playing a little bit higher. And so the ball's going to go over, or Hugo trying to play the ball off his foot as opposed to just, we saw a really nice play from, I think it was Hani Mukhtar last week, of actually just kind of, hitting the ball in off his thigh. And it's like, Hugo, if you just run into the ball, it's going into the back of the net. But you broke down and tried to like scissor kick and it threw it off, right? And so there does feel a little bit of an aspect of this might be mental, right? Because the skills there, the talent's there, the opportunities are there. Hugo Kuipers alone last night had 1.22 expected goals, which is an insane number for a game in which he didn't really have anything that was a tough save, to be candid.
No, it's like you said, it's a mental thing. It's two sides of a coin, and they're always choosing heads, but it's landing on tails for any situation. Like in a situation where they passed it, where they should have just shot it, or a situation where they should have passed it, but instead they shot it. It just felt like they constantly were not winning that final kick, that final pass, coin toss. That's sort of how I felt.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think, Tim made the comment a few weeks ago, if you told me an MLS team was going to be entering May without a win at home, you'd probably say that's not a real contender. And I think, we've kind of seen that bear out. I'm going to pull it up real quick just to make sure I have my numbers right. But a few weeks ago, sorry, what did you say, Alan?
I was like, have your facts straight.
Yeah. A few weeks ago, we were all talking about the Fire being, top of the table in the East and being really firmly in a playoff position. And now here we are a few weeks later after what was, I think we all acknowledged was going to be a pretty tough stretch. But I think, the one pounding the table saying all these games are at home. These are winnable games. And they now sit 11th in the East on 13 points. So they've picked up 3 points since that initial 5 games, right? So it's a little concerning, to say the least. It's a little disappointing. I think we all expected a little bit more out of this team. Certainly a little more fight in what was, let's be honest, like maybe the most winnable game we've had at home. I mean, guys, please correct me if I'm wrong. Like they felt like firmly the better team in that game. And you can sit here and blame a referee and blame this and blame that. But ultimately, like the red card to Brady doesn't matter because you should have scored 3 goals before Chris Brady came out of the game.
Absolutely. Like there literally like the very first chance, it should have been, it was, I can't remember who, but it was shot at goal. Gillespie made the save. It spilled. And then there was another player and it just went straight back at Gillespie instead of just going to like a bottom right corner where no one was there. It just went straight back at him. And then it got shot out. And they should have scored. They should have scored at least, like you mentioned, like maybe 2 goals. And they should have honestly scored at least 1, even after the red card. They were, in my opinion, the better team. Like Orlando, sure, they had moments where they were moving forward and they, sort of tested the defense or even tested Gall, but like not as well as the Fire did. And like you said, like the save like how many saves did Gillespie officially have? What was the number?
I have 9.
9. And like you mentioned, it's like most of them were just the fact he just stood there and he just took the shot right at his chest, right at his hands. Like it's frustrating. It's frustrating.
Yeah,
frustrating. That's the word for it.
Yeah, there is an aspect of this, and I can almost like sometimes I feel like I can hear DJ's thoughts, and I feel like there was a little piece of DJ right now saying like Orlando hasn't conceded a goal since March, which he's nodding his head now.
So the problem too for Orlando right now is they are where the Fire were back in 2022, where they haven't conceded since March. The problem is they haven't won. They've won once since March, and they've scored 3 games the entire time since March, and that was in one game.
Yeah.
But no, you can't make excuses with that. Like, yeah, Glaze is having good form, but if every shot you're taking is being directed at him, then that's not good for him. That's just congratulations, you're hitting a lamppost.
Yeah, and I mean, look, we're being a little hyperbolic. I think it wasn't every single shot. Like Pedro Gallese played well. He deserves, is probably the man of the match for Orlando. He deserves that credit 100%. And obviously, very talented keeper. So by no means am I going to sit here and pretend like he got lucky all night, right? Obviously, he's good at what he does, and there's more to being a keeper than just stopping the shot. You also have to worry about your positioning, blah blah blah. But it does feel like. It does feel like in a game where you can say I think the red card was valid, right? If for no other reason than it was just a boneheaded play from Chris Brady, and he knew it, right? He was coming off the field right away, taking his gloves off before the play had even been reviewed. So to me, that says he knew what he was doing. He was just trying to make sure they didn't score. Um, but you still had kind of everything that broke in that game in terms of actual play broke in favor of the Fire, right? You had all the opportunities, all the balls spilled to you, all the rebounds were directed right at your players. Orlando hit the frame twice in that game. They could have scored multiple goals. You got that red card just outside the box instead of inside the box. And to see kind of all of those breaks be wasted, I think is really a perfect encapsulation of what this slide has been, which is you go out there every week, you are the better team, and you just for one reason or another, for this or for that, you can't seem to actually finish and put something away when you should be able to. And that's I think, we're gonna go I think a little bit out of order on what we had planned, but this is something I wanted to talk about personally because I think I made this point online and I think I'm interested to hear your guys' perspective on it. In the 84th minute, we had a triple substitution. So obviously, Jeff Gall came on early in the game in the 36th, 38th minute, somewhere in there for Jonathan Bamba to replace Chris Brady. The Fire kind of switched into a 5-3-1. Essentially, is kind of what it looked like. So Andrew Gutman moved into more of a center back role. Jonathan Dean moved to the left, and Philip Zinkernagel played more as a right wing back, with then the 3 midfielders on top. Hugo Kuipers forward. We then saw, and I apologize. I got to make sure I have my timeline right, just so I can paint the picture as best I can. Um, my facts. Sorry about that, everybody. We then saw Omar Glasgow come in to replace Jonathan Dean as more of an attacking substitution in the 60th minute. And then in the 84th minute, what I think has drawn my own ire the most, Greg Berhalter went with a triple substitution, which is good. He finally didn't leave substitutions on the table, which has been bothering me all year. But he brought in Jay Davila for Sergio Orahel, Omar Gonzalez for Andrew Gutman, and Romani Kwame for Brian Gutierrez. And I got to be honest with you guys, at the moment, it really irked me. And now looking back, even more so, it really, really bothers me. I think looking back at that game, you had the foot on the neck for the entirety of that game, right? I mean, there were Orlando obviously had moments where they threatened, but the Fire were the more dangerous attacking team, even with 10 men. To then take your last 10 minutes of that game and say, all right, we're going to settle for the draw. We're just going to take this and go home. We'll keep our 1 point at home when you haven't had a win and you've been the better team going forward. Yeah, that really rubbed me the wrong way. That grinded my gears. I don't know if you guys felt the same way or you're just like, hey, I'll take a point. It's a bad day. You're down a man, but it did sit well with me.
Part of me agrees. Another part is thinking about our next game being Detroit City in the US Open Cup. And I'm trying to think to um specifically sort of make a correlation between um the Fire and Spurs with Ange Postecoglou, how even though in the league they're not doing too well, they're focused. They've basically put sort of a lot more of their eggs in the basket of the Europa League. And I'm thinking Greg wants to make sure that we have some sort of firepower or some sort of, I guess, energy for the Open Cup.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, not to be like, not sorry, and I don't mean to cut you off, DJ, because I'm sure you had a thought as well, but like, not to be like, hey, you're wrong, but like, then don't make that change in the 84th minute. Make it in the 70th minute, and I would be like, okay, maybe he wants to make sure he can get Brian Gutierrez for 20 minutes at the end of that game if he needs to. But in the 80th, like he's already played a full game, and for the record, from the look of it, Brian Gutierrez was not happy to be coming off late in the game there. DJ, I don't know if you had a thought or a feeling on it as well.
So here's the thing for me. I understand why, but on the flip side, there really were only two offensive substitutions that could be made. That was Martin and Barlow. The problem when you're in the 85th minute, you've been trying all game to get the goal. That goal is, it is very easy to switch off for a second because you're so focused on the attack that then all of a sudden, okay, Orlando's got a counter and they can score. We've seen it happen, I don't even know how many times at this point in the last few years. So because of that, I understand why he made the substitutions he did. I also understand that these are substitutions that he made knowing these are guys on yellow. We are running to the last minutes of the game. There's a very good chance you're going to need to make another tackle that could risk getting you a yellow. I don't want to lose another player for the game against Atlanta. So I understand the decision there. With that said, it would have been a better idea to also bring on an attacking player along with that group. Instead of, say, Orahel for Davia, subbing Orahel for subbing Haile Selassie. Haile Selassie gives you plenty of help on offense, too. So that's, I understand, and I understand both sides in all honesty of the argument, but the decision was good because, again, he's trying. If you can't come away with a draw, or if you can't come away with a victory, come away with a draw. That's the best alternative. And that's pretty much what Berhalter even said at the end of the game was, we didn't lose, which was good. If I'm correct, paraphrasing, that's basically what he said in the press conference.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely get the. So, I think the yellow card argument is a super valid one, right? That's probably the best argument to be candid. I think if I were telling somebody how to tell me to shut up, right? Um,
Mhm.
I do find personally the draw is better than a loss. Like not really right now, right? If I'm being entirely honest with, I think the mood of the fan base. I think, and I, not without having any kind of inside knowledge, right? I would imagine kind of the mood of the players. Like, how does it feel every day to show up to, show up to the facility knowing you still haven't won a game at home? And I think it would have maybe meant a little more, gone a little farther to say, all right, guys, we're going to go all out on this. We're going to try and win. Like, I think I said it last night while I was thinking about it, but like, truly, I would much rather have lost that game because we were being aggressive and going for it than walk away with a point. It almost feels like you're down to 10 men. You've been the better team. You've been the more aggressive team. You've been the better offensive team. You have an opportunity to steal a game here. And I know you shouldn't be stealing a game at home, but when you're down to 10 men and you're still putting the pressure on, it feels like a little bit of a disappointment to me to settle for a draw there. And that's really what that was, right? Because there's other ways to bring guys in to get those yellow card players off that you could still be playing a better shape there, right? You can, as far as I'm remembering, like Mauricio Pineda was still on the field. You could have moved Mauricio Pineda into the back line instead of bringing on Omar Gonzalez. You could have, brought in Martin Haile Selassie instead. You could have brought in Tom Barlow instead, who, we don't need to talk about Tom Barlow, but just generally speaking. So it was a little bit of, it felt like a little bit of waving the white flag, and nothing drives me crazier than waving the white flag at home. If this had been a road game, I would have felt differently.
I also feel the need to point out this is something Berhalter does. We saw this during the World Cup. He is A-okay with a draw. He hates a loss. To him, a point is a point. A loss is 0 points. You're not going to fight for a loss. So even during the World Cup, he was very conservative. He was very tactical about the decisions and all that. And off topic, I still kind of wonder I've wondered this for a while now. He's still adjusting to MLS. I think he's still
Yeah.
adjusting because we talked before. Oh, he was in MLS back with Columbus, but that was 2018. For
It was
reference, in
MLS
2018,
2.0.
yeah, 2018 MLS had Miguel Almiron being the best player in the league. Right now, the best player in the league is probably
Hugo Kuipers.
I blanked entirely on who I was going to say, but like you have multiple
Lionel
players that
Messi.
are oh
No.
god, not like Messi's not even in the top 5 right now. That's what I'm trying to say. Like Messi is not even in the top 5 best players in the league right now. The best,
I mean, like, I get
arguably the
what you're
best player of
saying,
all
but
time.
I don't know
Yeah.
if that's true.
Well, I say that just because he really has not been playing well this last few games.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I mean, it's a new league, so I think he's still adjusting. He's still coming from the national team stuff, but he's still that conservative Berhalter that's going to go, okay, I don't think we're getting a goal this game. Let's just try for the draw.
Yeah. And hey, look, I'd love to, get to the end of the year and we secure a playoff spot by 1 point. And then I say, oh, hey, well, you know what? There we go. I was wrong. He made the right decision. But I think when you're entering, when you're about to be mid-May without a win at home and you've got an opportunity to just get one goal and get out with a win, I think that should be top of mind. Like I said last week, I
Yeah.
think this 7-day stretch is maybe the most important of the season in terms of what it can offer you and the fan base and the overall vibe. And I don't like the way it started, to be candid. And now you're going to be without Chris Brady against Atlanta, which I'm sure we will talk about later this week on the preview for the Atlanta episode. So now it's actually kind of interesting to see if he'll play against Detroit, because maybe he will. Speaking of who's going to play against Detroit, we do want to, again, we mentioned a little bit earlier, but I'll kind of kick off this next part by saying big old shout out to Christopher Cubs. Really wonderful performance from the 16-year-old making his first MLS start, obviously coming off the heels of his debut in that 7-2 thumping against Nashville. So definitely exciting times for Christopher. I thought overall a good performance. Obviously, a few mistakes here and there, a few mental lapses, but was super impressed by his play, the physicality, especially for a guy of his age. Alan, DJ, I don't know if you guys have any additional thoughts before we talk a little bit more about it.
I mean, he's the youngest player I think to ever start for the Fire, so
yeah,
you can't. This is the same that happened 2 years ago with Brady. He's 16. You can forgive the mental lapses for a little bit, but he's going to learn from it. From what I've heard, a lot of people have said he's very mature for his age, which out of context sounds horrible to say, but he is a very
I don't think
good.
anybody was thinking that until you said it.
I apologize. I have YouTube open on one other screen,
Eh,
but I'm watching Minecraft YouTubers. Don't worry about it.
that just makes it worse.
Exactly. That's why I first. But he's going to learn from these mistakes. He's going to grow. If he keeps playing like this, I think at the end of the season you're starting to have this competition of who is genuinely starting next. Elliott, is it Cups? Is it Rogers? Is it Tron if he's healthy? Which that's a really good thing to have. That's a great problem to have if you're going into next season too. With hey, Cups is now 17. He's genuinely a starter potential.
Yeah.
feel like
Alan. Oh, sorry. Go
no,
ahead, Alan. There you go.
I was just going to say that I feel like we always keep coming back to this idea of the quote unquote good problem of having a lot of good options on and off the bench. And then all of a sudden, in a few weeks, we're like, oh, we don't got anyone because people are just injured or just not performing well. But I mean, all the glory to Cubs and all the homegrown players that have come up through the Fire Academy, through Fire 2, and are now like our starters or featuring for the team. And we'll probably see a few more flashes of those potential players for the U.S. Open Cup against Detroit. We might see a few more of those faces of people who could break into the first team into the future. I just think it's pretty cool. relying a lot, or not relying, but like utilizing your academy rather than like dipping your hand into the pocketbook and trying to get like these big name players or whatnot. Of course, I'm not saying I don't want big name players in KDB, but I think it's just pretty cool. Let the boys play.
I will also add one of the US MNT follower pages, one of the big ones on Twitter, even went out and said how amazing it was that the Fire were doing. The Fire started 6 academy players yesterday. Cubs was the 6th one. The Fire are using their academy players that they've had on the team for years, or ones that are just joining. You can't say that's a bad thing. That is always going to be a good thing when your academy players are playing well enough that they're starting for the team.
Yeah, 100%. I think, to kind of what you started with, DJ, like, I don't see a world in which Christopher Kups is not starting next week first against Atlanta. I don't see how you look at that performance and find any other way, unless Greg just feels like he's not physically there yet, right? Sometimes with younger guys, they don't have quite the experience of playing 90 minutes week in, week out. You maybe just want to work him back in 30 minutes here, 90 minutes here, 30 minutes, that kind of thing. But overall, yeah, was super impressed. And I think, to kind of what you both said there, right? Super impressive in the way that we can get the academy guys up. And it really makes you think, like, in a league like MLS, I mean, obviously soccer at large is very much, you expect your best players to move on and be sold. But if you have this kind of, for lack of a better word, stable of young guys who can come in at 16, 17, 18 and start not even being starters, just being contributors, it's huge. And even more so if you have them coming in and they can stay for 3, 4, 5 years, maybe, right? Obviously you may not get that far depending on how well they play, but if you can build this core of guys who will grow together over the course of 3, 4, 5 years, that's really how you kind of maintain and build that success. You have your 2 or 3 big names every year that'll get moved on because the money's too much, or the money's too much to turn down. Yeah, it just sets a really awesome floor for, I think, what you can expect from the club moving forward. And to that end, Sergio Orhel, another name that we've talked about a lot, really, really wonderful performance. Seeing him back in, I think it showed what we missed in the midfield last week. His ability on the ball, and I think his ability off the ball was good as well. So, yeah, massive shouts to Christopher Kups for his performance this week, and hope to see more of it moving forward as well.
Just it's, again, I just love to see the Fire almost working towards breaking the old MLS, the quote unquote retirement league stereotype.
Mhm.
The fact that this is a league where young players are getting the chance, they're being developed, and they are moving on, of course, to bigger leagues, but it of course grows the league in and of itself, that people are willing to come in their prime and play with these players as well. I can't wait to see more and more teams doing that, and of course the Fire still doing that. Let the boys play.
And there are at least, I think, 5 players on Fire 2 and in the academy who 100% will be on first team contracts in the next few years. And we haven't even talked about Robert Trudine yet, who will probably get some minutes over the next few years.
That'd be
Yeah.
fantastic.
Granted, it'll probably Open Cup minutes, but Open Cup minutes are still minutes. Matej Stekovic was a Fire player for 1 minute. That's all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
Hey man, you take the field one time. That's all it takes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Heck yeah. Last thing we kind of have to talk about today, and we won't spend too much time on it, but um, guys, especially coming off a bad loss and then a disappointing draw, the Fire do take on Detroit City FC this week, Wednesday. It's a midweek game at SeatGeek Field, 7 o'clock. Be there. Wear your red shiesties if you have one, by the way. If you don't have one, buy one. Wear it to the game. Going to be great. Little bit of a vibe check, a little bit of a thoughts on what this means. Alan, I'll toss to you to kind of kick us off, just in terms of, obviously, I think if we were all asked, we would expect a win, given against a lower division side. But we know the Fire have not always fared well against those teams. So, what are you expecting to see from the club in terms of intensity, and what you're looking for out of a game like this?
I feel like the club, Greg knows, the club knows, and the fans especially know how important the cup is to the Fire and to its fans. And the last few seasons, even last season, while it was for Fire 2, there is that magic of the cup. There's just almost that nostalgia knowing that the Fire has won it 4 times. You go there, and and being at Bridgeview for the cup specifically, there's a special there's something special to it, something that especially that the supporters hold close to heart. So I'm hoping that Greg understands the assignment and he does do his best to well, not to embarrass himself, of course. Thinking back to when the Fire got knocked out in their first game against Omaha on penalties, which was, not fun. So just send it. Just full send it, Just full send. We want the cup. If this is the year of the cup, then let it be. Let it be. I would love it. I would love it if we can get some silverware for Greg's first year. Let it be the cup.
I'm going to add on by saying this. I 100% would not be shocked. There is going to be rotation. You're probably going to see like Omar Gonzalez start the game. You're probably going to see Omar Glasgow. But I also wouldn't be shocked if you see quite a few first team players starting as well.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't you wouldn't be shocked to see Elliott start. Wouldn't be shocked to see Gutman and probably Dean start. Wouldn't be shocked to see like Brady even in net at this point because screw it, he's not going to be in for Atlanta, so throw him in here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, kind of twofold, right? I think Alan, I agree with kind of what you were saying. DJ, I agree with the sentiment. Like I think the difference is we're not going to see any like short-term call-ups, right? Maybe one or two just for depth's sake, but I don't think we're going to see Hugo or Guti or Zink. You probably will see Bamba just because he barely played, right? I think you could see a half from Jonathan Bamba. I think you'll probably get Omar Gonzalez and Sam Elliott, sorry, Sam Rogers. And then probably some combination of Omar Glasgow and Jonathan Dean. If I was guessing, maybe Justin Reynolds as well. And yeah, and obviously we would expect like a Sam Williams, Romani Kwame to play a bit just because he's going to have some opportunity there. And maybe like Claudio Casano. He's the one guy from the second team who I could see starting in this game just because he trains with the first team. The intention is that he will eventually be with the first team, I would imagine. But I think, Ellen, I think to your point, man, like I think when Greg was hired, I said that the big thing for him is, this is a guy who has a ton of experience in winning single elimination tournaments. And that's going to be huge to playing in MLS, obviously for MLS Cup, but also because US Open Cup matters, right? This could be a disaster of a season. And if you win US Open Cup, it kind of doesn't matter. If you bring a trophy back in your first year, you're going to have all the time in the world to make sure that your system gets implemented. So I think that is kind of the one saving grace to this stretch of if you come in and you put out a strong first team lineup for what is, I think, to a lot of fans, the most important competition, it really goes a long way in terms of establishing your culture, your identity, your vision for this team and building some goodwill, right? Because I think right now that's fading a little bit. I think people are disappointed. People are frustrated. We can use like the weather vane of a rye, right? It's like, which way is it blowing? Is it blowing positive or negative? And if it's negative, that probably means things aren't going well, although it's a pretty low bar for a rye. Shout out to rye. I love you. But I think coming out with a strong win, something like a 3-1, 4-0, 3-0, that kind of thing, will go a long way. But man, if you eke out a 1-0 victory against Detroit City, or God forbid you lose to Detroit City, I mean, it could unravel very quickly in terms of frustration for sure. And that feels like probably as good a bad note to wrap it up on. Fellas, anything you want to chime in with before we kind of get everything packed up?
Win.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm going to say this as my hot take for the season. This is going to be the season. I feel like this is going to be normal for the season, but
yeah, well,
I don't think
what? Get on. Oh, go ahead, did you?
I don't think this is panic mode just yet, just because again it's the first season. And if this is how the season's going to go, we're going to have these low patches, but Open Cup goes really well. I'm okay with that to a degree, so long as it's not consistently Nashville.
Oh my
Yeah,
God, yeah.
I think we all agree.
Nashville is like a place of nightmares for the Fire right now.
I think we all agree a fifth Open Cup gets us buys Greg a lot of time, a lot of goodwill with the community, as it were. Um, Awesome. Well, hey, thank you again so much for being here. Couple quick shout outs that we'll leave as always. Give us a follow over on all the social medias, either Men in Red 97 or on Twitter, MIR 97 Pods for podcast specific updates. We just posted a new episode of Hot Takes as well last week, so go ahead and give that a listen. We talked Kevin De Bruyne, Jack Elliott, all sorts of different things here and there. So it was a really wonderful conversation. Great kind of having everybody out. And of course, always keep an eye out for the end of the month. Well, we'll be doing another Hot Takes Live. Stay tuned to the website. We've got wonderful reporting from Alex Calabresi, Tim Hotze, and Max as well, who all kind of put out their best work. They're always keeping you updated for all things Chicago Fire, first team, second team, all the good stuff. It's the place to be. It's the place to be tuned into wherever you are listening to this. If you could go ahead and subscribe. If you're on Apple Podcasts, rate us 5 stars. If you're on Spotify, give us a thumbs up. Give it a share as well. Let your friends know, like, hey, you want to know a little bit more ball than you knew yesterday. This is maybe the place to check out. So it's a wonderful, wonderful. Again, thank you so much for giving us a listen, sitting with us here around the bonfire while we ramble on about things we love to ramble about. For Alan, for DJ, for our wonderful producer Austin, who makes us sound good and actually makes sure these things get posted in time. Yeah, shout out Austin. Thank you so much again for joining us around the bonfire. It's been a pleasure having you. Come on, you Men in Red.